you're retaining members for approximately 20 months, which compare that to industry average of 10, that means you're getting about twice the amount of lifetime value and revenue. Today, I'm here with Lanie Brazell, owner of Club Pilates in Auburn, Alabama. Their studio has 230 reviews at a 5-star rating and is in the top 10% of Club Pilates within her tier. Club Pilates is argued to easily be the most successful Pilates franchise and brand within the Exponential brand. Today's episode, we talked to Lanie about how she actually made the decision to go from 3 profitable studios to just 1, but how that decision has made her overall business much more profitable while also helping her win back time, a lot of time, as she's realized simplicity is actually extremely important and has her hours down to about 30 per week. We're going to also talk about how she has killer processes in place and how she's learned how to build and trust her team to grow the business without her. We also talk about sales activity standards in her studio, and we dive into her follow-up processes as well as all the work that her team does to get new members in the facility. We're also going to be diving into goals and quotas and how they live in her business, and also retention, as she's retaining members twice as good as the average studio. We're also going to dive into her dedication to learning, which is actually how we were brought together in a random hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, that she and her team drove 6 hours to get to years ago. You did one of the things that I think a lot of people won't do. And I think the reason people won't do it is not because it's illogical, because what you did was very, very logical, but ego sometimes causes people to make illogical decisions. And you had 3 studios at one point with the Club Pilates brand, and you went down to 1. So I want to talk to you about that first before we dive into anything else, because I think that was the biggest part of your journey. Good decision, bad decision, why?
Great decision.
Yeah.
Wish I could have done it sooner. I guess they say sometimes in life, simplicity is better. And I had 3 studios. I had 3 children. I had 3 dogs. I've kept the kids and the dogs, but we went down to 1, and it just got better. I was able to do things not just Club Pilates way, but my way as well, and really put all of my effort and all of my energy into that 1 studio, and give back to my members and my staff too. I wasn't spread so thin.
Now, a lot of people think more studios, more money. What was it like for you?
So that was definitely a concern when I made that decision, even up to the point of like the day before we signed the documents and handed everything over. I was like, oh, is this, the right decision? Am I going to make up for that difference in that income? And we made up for it tenfold, and relatively quickly, like within a couple months.
Why is that? Why do you think that happened, where you were able to make more money from 1 location versus the money you were making from 3 combined?
So 1, I was able to dial things in, right? Like really make sure that everything has a script and has a operating procedure, and I'm there, or I'm available for my staff too. I'm able to train them more intensely and take my time training. So when you have 3 studios, it's like, oh, okay, I need to hire a manager for this one. I got sales reps over here, and we've got 1 leaving, and we got to replace. And so I feel like you're constantly kind of on a hamster wheel in a way, and you're really just kind of like poking holes and replacing. And it's like, oh, just get them trained as fast as they can. Well, that's not really fair for your staff either, right? They need to be equipped with the tools to do what they need to do. And it's not just, oh, hi, welcome to Club Pilates, let me check you in. There's a lot more that our staff does for that member, from the time that they put their information in to want to come try their free class, all the way till they've been a member with us for 3, 4, 5 years, right? So if we're constantly on that hamster wheel of changing people out just to plug the hole so we don't have to be there, that just gets challenging. Whereas I'm able to anticipate hires and staffing transitions, and I'm able to take my time and really train them. So that's one of my recruiting tools too for my sales team is, hey, like you're getting top-notch sales training. And whether or not you intend to be a salesperson in life or with your job in the future, um, you're going to be selling yourself at some point. Like everybody says, there's nothing you do in life that you don't do sales.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's funny, even somebody listening that goes, "No, that's not true." Well, right now they'd be selling you that it's not true, and you'd be selling them that it is, right? So,
Right.
so capacity, it's really communication. It's how do I get you to buy into a product, into an idea, into a movement? How do I get you to make a decision towards something? Um,
Well, and when you say we're in the business of providing solutions,
right.
right? Like I want to know about each individual member, like what do they need? What would make their life better? And then how can we do that?
Absolutely. Now, the revenue is one thing. Is your one location making more profit than the three locations you had?
Yes. The
Got
other
it.
two were draining on that one as well. So
How much time would you say you're spending in the business now versus before?
on average, like throughout a year, right? We're somewhat seasonal in fitness, and so January, February, March are our super busy times. August, end of August, September, October are super busy, and so I'm plugged in more into the business when it's our time that we really need to go.
Mhm.
But when I average that out through the down times, like Christmas time or July, I mean, on average, probably 30 hours a week. Whereas before that, it was nonstop 60, 80 hours a week. And I'm a former CPA, so I worked public accounting before that. CPAs are known for their, hefty workload. Um, at one point, I was like, why am I doing this? I think I'm working more than I did, when I was working for somebody in public accounting doing publicly traded audits. Like, this is crazy.
Right.
So, like I said, simplicity, like it, it seems scary sometimes, but sometimes it's better to put all your focus and do it really, really well than spread yourself thin.
100%. Now, as far as the success goes, the cool thing is, I mean, Club Pilates is a successful brand. I mean, I've met quite a few Club Pilates. Now, keep in mind, I'm a little biased because I get to meet some of the better
Mm-hmm.
ones. But I've met quite a few Club Pilates who are doing really, really well, not just in revenue numbers, but in profit numbers too. And a couple of them, because they're in our program,
Yeah.
which is great. But how many locations? How many Club Pilates locations are there?
Well, there's over 800 locations now, and they're international as well too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So that's a lot of locations in a brand that does well. Where do you stand in the brand? I know there's tiers as well.
right. So within our tier, we're in the top 10%. Outside of our tier, top 30%.
And that's because of locations, right? Like obviously a location
Right.
in Manhattan or Miami versus a location you're out in Auburn, right?
Right. I'm in Auburn, Alabama. So
Right.
smaller area.
Right, right. So in your tier, which is demographics similar to that, or geographics
Right.
similar to that, you're in that top 10%. And you're doing this, you're working, 30 hours a week or so. You're in the top 10% of a very successful brand. You're making great revenue, great profit, but you don't have a manager. You're the
Right.
manager and the owner,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, I've talked to you about this. And I was like, why don't you just get a manager? You had enough profit to possibly
Right.
really get a manager. But I heard two things. One is that you actually enjoy what you're doing. And two, you
I
kind
do.
of like it's not really that hard for you. Like this is actually a really good like position for you to be in. So I guess what I want to know from you is because there's a lot of people that are not bringing in the amount of members that you got to manage,
Right.
that aren't in the top 10% of a successful brand with that many locations, and they have a manager and they're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. If they were the manager, they probably wouldn't go home. So
Right.
a question for you is, what are some of the things that you have put in place to be able to really make sure that as a manager you can work 30 hours a week and still do great revenue and profit numbers?
Right. So, number one, hiring good people. So what do they say? Hire slow, fire fast.
Hmm.
Um, Anticipating my needs, staffing needs ahead of time, trying to get ahead of that curve. I always have a stockpile of resumes. People will just send in resumes and say, "Hey, do you have something open?" And I'll say, "Well, I don't right now, but if you're okay, I'd like to hold on to your resume." So I always have a stockpile of resumes. My instructors also are always on the lookout for people who would be great for teacher training, and maybe not even just great for being an instructor right off the chute, but somebody that they think that they have the personality for that, and we can teach them to become an instructor. So they do a real good job of keeping an eye out and helping me initiate those conversations.
Now, I really
So
quick, I want to stop there for a second because a lot of people think there's going to be people that are watching or listening right now and they're saying, well, yeah, I know hire people. I know I have good people. But there's a difference between having good hearted people that are really nice, that are really kind, that really love the brand and really work hard,
right,
and people that are that and also extremely productive. And your
yes,
people are extremely productive, meaning the company moves forward and there
yes,
is profit and there's healthy profit and the members are happy and there's consistency. So
consistency,
yeah, so for those people, because you know them in the program, you might have been this person, I've been this person
right,
that thinks they know that they've got good people, and then they
right.
get around really good people, and they're like, oh, that's what you mean. So what's that difference in what you've got on your team?
The main difference is what we do once we hire them. I don't just throw them to the wolves. They train with me, especially my sales staff, and with a lead sales member for at least 30 days. I'm working with them. I'm teaching them how to sell. I'm teaching them what Pilates is. I'm teaching them what our processes are. I'm teaching what our policies are so that every message that comes out from us is consistent and the same no matter who is doing it. Um, they have a complete guidebook, checklist. They never have to worry about like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing right now? You
Right.
know,
So
they
there's
have clear expectations.
so clear expectations or standards, right?
Right.
And then that's divided into two things typically. That's activity standards. These are
Right.
the things that we do every day. And we'll dive into
Yes.
that. And then there's KPIs, where it's like, these are the things we must accomplish at the end
Yes.
of whatever period. And
Right.
so one is more activity, the other one is the outcome of said activity. Now, the cool thing is, if they can achieve the activity and miss on the I'm sorry, if they can achieve on the outcome and miss on the activity a little bit, no harm, no foul. On the
Right.
other end, if they achieve and even overachieve on the activity, but they still can't hit the outcome, there is a problem.
That's
So
right.
the most important thing is the outcome. So I do want to dive into that and what are the standards for that. But I really also want to start with the activity standards. So what are some of the standards of things that must get done that would lead to growth in the company?
So contacting leads as soon as they come into the system, we're contacting them right away. My staff knows that within the first 5 minutes that lead comes in, we're reaching out to them as it as soon as possible, right? Like that, the sooner the better, because there's so many options in fitness, and we are all an instant gratification society. I want to be the first one to the table.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, they could change their mind. Like they may be really on fire right now, but a few hours
right.
later, that like whole feeling of wanting to get in shape went away. And it's a very fluid like demographic. So there was a stat that I saw. It was actually a couple years ago, so I don't know what the updated stat is, but the average American woman starts or restarts a diet 9 times per year. So
I
that
would believe that. Yeah.
now, keep in mind, you say, oh, so it's nine. No, it could be like there's some people that don't start or restart at all, whether because they're already in shape
Right.
or because they just don't care about it. So you have some people that might be starting or starting twice a month on average, right?
Yeah.
So it's very easy to either catch them in the mood or lose them. And
Yes.
so you follow up and you follow up quick. And then what
Yes.
else?
And then we're following up with them uh, twice, 2 times in the first day, every day for the first 7 days, and then probably every other day almost within the first 30 days. And not only are they getting a call from us, they also are getting text messages. And all those text messages aren't, hey, I want to book, hey, I want you to buy. Some of those are informational too, or asking them a question. One of mine says, hi, this is Lanie, one of the instructors at Club Pilates. I heard you were interested in us. Is there anything that I can answer for you? So it's not just all coming from the sales team. Sometimes they just need to know, like, can I do Pilates if I have had a back injury? Can I do Pilates if I'm 6 weeks postpartum? That kind of thing.
And your goal is really just get the conversation going, right? If we get the
Yes.
conversation going, it's a lot easier.
Yes. Again, we are solution based. So I need to know everything there is possible to know about this potential new member. I want to know what are their goals. And we typically don't ask, like, what are your goals? That people seem to attach goals to, like, I need to make this whole vision board and I need to have a whole planning session. So it's more of, I'll say, what are you looking to get from Pilates? Or what are you looking to achieve that you're not achieving currently in your fitness program?
Got it.
Um,
Now with
and I'm
activity,
wanting to know what they're currently doing too.
got it. And with activity metrics, I noticed that everyone's a little different as far as what they measure for activity. Because ideally, like the outcome's the only thing we care about, and so they build the activity out based on what they've learned, gets them to that overall outcome. So I'll go down the list here, and you just let me know if you have a standard activity metric that you aim for, whether it be on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So we'll start with like calls. Is there a certain amount of sales calls that is an activity metric that either a person or the team is accountable to making?
Yeah, so we work together. All of our sales work together as a team. Now they have individual quotas, but as a team, we're working together for this whole studio goal. So they know my studio goal number of members and they know their individual members. And then we know on average that you have to make about 10 calls to at least get one booking. Now, I find that to be sometimes some days there's more. Like one day we booked 18 people last week, the day after Memorial Day. And then 3 days later, we only booked two. But on average, I'm looking to make in our studio 75 to 100 calls a day.
75 to 100 calls per day as a studio. And then you
Yes.
have your individual KPI or so your individual quotas per person as well. And so
Right.
everybody listening, you're hearing goals and you're hearing quotas and you're saying, aren't they the same thing? So goals is a desired result and
Mhm.
quotas is a required result.
Yes.
So one of them is like, this is where we want to go. And sometimes there's like a bonus, or sometimes there's like a fun activity, or sometimes it's just like bragging rights. We did it. Um,
Yes.
and then quota is we have to have a tough conversation because we didn't hit. And then if we have to have two or more, we might have to say this may not be for us if we can't figure it out along the way.
Right.
Awesome.
And I make
Uh,
sure that that's really, when I'm interviewing somebody, I make sure that I'm explaining that exact thing. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to give you all the tools to achieve your quota, but you have to do the work. And if we don't hit that quota like the first month, then we need to go back to some more training. Like, that's more than likely my fault that I didn't train you well.
I got
So,
to tell you, I made that mistake early on where I used interviewing people on, to work for me as like an opportunity to sell because I want them to want to work for me so bad
right,
that I would make my
right.
company sound like the best thing in the world, which it is. But I would do my best. I do my best to sell them on it. And so I would leave things out that maybe would unsell them. And then when they came on, then I would tell them, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And
Yeah.
so that didn't help. Years
No.
later, I realized now I know, right? And I've known for years now, but no, you got to let them know, like, hey, look, you're going to have to make at least 75 calls, right? And you're going to have
Yeah.
to at least generate this many leads and all the things that suck. And that will filter a lot of people out, but
Yes.
good, right?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, I mean, I really do say, like, you're going to make this many calls. Are you comfortable doing that? Now, we don't have cold calls, so it's not like we're just going through, a list of phone numbers that we randomly like purchased or something. People have to express interest in us, so they shouldn't be surprised that we're contacting them. But I also have them meet with one of my other sales reps when they come in for their in-person interview without me right there with them, so they can kind of show them a glimpse of what the shift's going to look like. So I want them to really know before we get started, because I always say it's going to take a good month to get you trained just to work by yourself. So, uh, we all have to be invested in this together.
Agreed. Agreed. So that's how many calls. Do you have any type of activity metrics around like how many leads one's expected to generate on their own, or a gym, like your facility as a whole, outside of paid ads and stuff?
Yeah, so 2 referrals per shift is our goal.
2 referrals per shift. Okay, cool. And what about books or shows or closes? What's the activity look like there? The standards there
So booking, I'm looking for about a 40% booking rate, um,
on the leads or on the contact rate?
off of leads.
Off of leads. Okay, so if you got a
Mhm.
hundred leads, we need to get at least 40 people booked.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
And then show rate.
95%.
95%. Now, there's some people listening and watching right now, and they're like, dude, no, she's out of her mind. There's no way. We're getting like 60, 70% show.
Right.
So you're getting a 95% show. What do you think you do differently in the process to be able to get dang near everyone to come in?
So number one, again, we are getting to know that person. Like, what do they need from us, and providing them with that solution? How can Pilates help that?
On the call.
Two, on the call. And then two, we are expressing the importance of there's only 12 people in our class. So we are giving you a spot that a member would be in. Um, in return, we're asking you to show up 20 minutes before, because we need enough time for the instructor to go over the equipment with you and for you to know what to expect. Um, and then we also we operate like a spa or hotel. I mean, we are high end, right? We are boutique fitness. We are bougie. We're not, there's no hiding that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's who we
Right.
are. So
Right.
we tell them we operate like a spa or hotel. So we do require a credit card to be on file to book your spot into class. If for any reason you can't come, then we just need a 12-hour notice to cancel or reschedule. Otherwise, there's that single class rate, which for us is $35. And then we're sending that in a text message. Once we book them, we're sending that in a text message and an email and confirming 24 hours before. And then 2 hours before the class, they're getting another text message from us again, reminding them of this.
So you're giving them all the opportunities to be able to
Absolutely.
reschedule. But at the end of the day, you have a 95% show rate. And if they don't show, there's a $35 charge. Now, do you hold
Yeah.
everyone to it? Or do you sometimes say like, hey, you know what? Let's just reschedule it again?
So like 99% of the time, like more so of a no show. We will give them, courtesy of about like 3 to 4 hours before. But I have found I've had a couple people who will like text in and they'll say, and it'll be like 2 hours before. They'll be like, "Are you going to charge?" And I'm like, "Well, I really would encourage you to come, because yes, like there's going
Yeah.
to be a fee." And then 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, "Okay, I'm coming then." So, you know, but it's not like, yes, you have to come, but I would encourage you to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
gone through all of this already. Um, but
It's so
but
funny
yeah,
at GSD Con, which I know you weren't able to make because you were at your son's meet, I think, right? Or something like
yes,
that.
swim meet,
Yeah.
yep. Hmm.
Michael Burnoff, a communications master, specifically in NLP and something he created called HIT. He talked about the word encourage in sales and how that
I
actually
really.
works. So it's funny that you use that. Um, okay, so 95% show rate. Now, for the people that show up, what's your close rate target?
40 to 50%.
40 to 50%. Okay. And then do you ask for referrals at the point of sale?
We do.
Yep. And
We
what
do.
do you have a target or a metric on that? Like, hey, we want to get at least this many or
No, so we have a whole when people join, we have what we call our new member folder. In that folder, it has their agreement summary, it has our studio policies, it has how to use our wait list. Since our classes are pretty full, we have to do a lot of educating on that. And then we have in there 20% off their first retail purchase because we want to go ahead and start making them, a retail buyer. And we have a QR code for referrals as well as a guest pass that they can give that has a QR code to a friend. So we have that in there. We're talking about that a lot. If we're asking for those, sometimes we'll get those at the point of sale, but they also have those, and I have those referral cards throughout our entire studios, in the bathrooms, in the cubbies, at the front desk, on a mirror, like at our member mirror that is in the main studio area. I have a QR code too.
So a
So
lot
yeah,
of
so we're talking about that a lot. We're
very
laying that groundwork,
Now, with that being said, I've talked about this on the show too. A lot of people they say their favorite lead source is referrals, yet they don't actually intentionally create referral marketing strategies. Obviously, you do put a lot of attention into it.
Yes,
How many referrals would you say you're generating on a monthly basis?
at least 20.
At least 20. Okay. And when it comes to attrition, that's a big one. Like
Yes.
what's the target for you guys in attrition, and where do you typically land? I know it varies.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So majority through the year, like 5%. Um, Now we're in a college town, so May and June are really high attrition months for me, but May for us was like 8%
Yeah,
this
which is
May.
still not too bad. So,
No,
so for everybody watching, listening, 10 to 12% industry average, which is usually an 8.5 to 12 month retention on clients. So the formula is one divided by your attrition percentage. That'll tell you how many months you're keeping people on average. So Lanie, at 5%, that would be one divided by 5% would be 20 months. So you're retaining members for approximately 20 months, which compare that to industry average of 10, that means you're getting about twice the amount of lifetime value and revenue from any customer you have than the
yeah,
average studio out there, which of course allows you to scale a lot faster. It's hard to scale when you're losing people too
yes,
fast. And you can't outsell them. So every member you keep for
no,
another month, another member you didn't have to sell. Right.
yes, absolutely.
Um, so one of the things that I really like to is the way you travel. Because I'm a traveler. I like traveling, and I share this for the audience because you know, uh, the idea of being able to step away is terrifying for a lot of people.
Yes,
And not only are you
right.
working 30 hours or less because you've got a really solid team that gets their stuff done, but on top of that, you travel quite a bit.
Yeah,
So, what does it look like for you prior to going away in order to make sure that things still continue to get done and your team is set up for success?
yeah. So one, scheduling. I schedule our sales team like 6 months in advance. They have a set schedule. Those 6 months in advance are kind of, we do it semester system in a way. Um, their schedule is out there for them. They can look at it. They'll swap things around. And then we all communicate really well. I'm letting my team know, like at least my lead salesperson or one of my lead instructors, hey, I'm planning, especially if it's a longer trip, I'm planning to be gone this during time. Like, can you just make sure that everything's, if somebody can't, emergency happens, can you be the one that's on call? But they all
Mhm.
work really well together. In general, we just have that expectation that we are a team, and there's at some point everybody's going to want to be off at some point. So, share the wealth, right? But I'm doing all of my member tasks, all of my marketing, as far as social media planning, any of our like current in studio marketing. Um, I'm having those signs already made, and they're sitting on my desk before I leave for somebody to swap them out if I can't set them up before I leave. Um, just all those little day to day things that a manager does, I'm just doing it on the front end instead of having to worry about it when I'm gone. And then also, my team knows that members, if I'm gone for an entire week, hey, our manager is out on vacation right now. She will get back to you as soon as possible. While I'm gone, too, I still am checking in daily. It's at least just looking metrics. Did things get done today? Is there any like major fire that needs to be put out? It
You
takes
know
me a
what?
couple minutes.
It's funny because it's kind of frowned upon, right? Like, oh, you're on vacation, you should leave it alone. But like, I'm a dad, you're
Oh,
a dad. It's like checking on your kids. Like, yeah,
right.
I get it. I want to be away from the kids, but it doesn't mean I don't want to check in on them and see how everyone's doing, make sure
Yeah.
everyone's okay. Anything you need, great. Boom, back to the beach.
Well,
But it feels
well, but
almost
I mean,
stressful to not like. I want to. You're making me unhappy to not just check in, make
yeah.
sure everyone's cool.
Well, I also feel bad. Like I still have, I don't know what you would call it. Being a mom, I'm like, I have mom guilt whenever I'm gone or if I'm not in the studio. Even if I'm in town and I'm not in the studio, I'll be like, oh gosh, like I don't ever want them to think that I'm not working as hard as I expect them to work. Like,
Right,
I want to lead by example, right?
right.
So, but you know, I do want to check in on them. Like, it may even just be a text to my front desk. I'll be in a little later today, or, they all know I'm in Athens right now for my son's swim camp to go watch him for a day. And so I've just sent a text. How are you doing? Everything okay? So they all, I feel like if they know I'm gone or they know that I'm here if they need me, and I would want them to reach out to me at any point.
I love it. Now, I want to dive into some of the things that, off camera prior to recording, you were telling me you've really picked up and it's made an impact, like your sales process, your scripts, the training that you do with your staff, the referral process. Before I do, I want to dive into how you and I really met
Yeah.
because we kind of knew of each other, but then there
Yeah.
was something that happened. So let's dive into that story, Lainey.
Yeah. So we've known each other since I opened my first Club Pilates studio in 2017. Y'all were doing our social media marketing, and we had great success. I remember we talked one point back. We probably should pull some video. It'd be funny to see how you and I both have changed, right? But we talked about how I was like, oh my gosh, like as soon as the marketing turned on, it was just like a fire hydrant of leads was coming at me within like a day. So we were able to, be really successful with our soft opening and grand opening. But fast forward a couple years later, it was 2020 and it was the end of January. And I was running 3 studios. Auburn had been the one that I own now, had been open for right at a year. And the other ones had been open for 2 and 3 years. And I just was feeling really stressed and trying to manage everything. And I remember saying to my husband too, I was like, I just don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, like emotionally, mentally, physically. I'm just exhausted. This is not maintainable long term. And so an email had come across from Loud Rumor and it said, Mike is going to be in Nashville tomorrow and doing like one-on-one sessions, like a mastermind kind of thing,
Yeah.
and analyze your business and, help. And I literally called Craig and I was like, okay, this is crazy. I know, but this opportunity came up. Nashville's 6 hours from Auburn too. And so I was like, am I crazy to go? Like, he was like, no, if you think it's going to be that big of a difference, then just go. So I called the 2 managers I had at that time and I was like, okay, y'all, I am crazy, but we're going and I need you to like run and pack your stuff. I need you to make sure everything's covered at the studios and I will pick you up. Like I went home and packed, I picked everybody up, like made a circle and we headed to Nashville. We met you the next morning and I think we were supposed to only meet for like 2 hours. We ended up like talking for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
And
I
we
like
had,
I like you guys. I liked you guys. That's why.
yeah, we hit it off well. Or either you just felt bad for me because there was such desperation and, angst in my whole being. But we left with like a huge notebook full of notes and the whole 6 hours on the drive back. We did stay overnight, but we were only gone for 24 hours. We just made a plan and it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we did. And I mean, you know this about me, Mike, like I am a take action kind of person. Like if something's not going right or it's wrong, like we're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over
Right.
again. I tell my 14-year-old this with swimming in school. I'm like, would you keep walking into the wall like over and over? No, like change your behavior. So
Right. And
yeah,
the
we
reason I
did.
wanted the reason I wanted you to share that story was because that action that you had taken. So our top core value at our companies is FIO and GST, and it stands for figure it out and get shit done.
Yeah.
And you figured it out. You're like, okay, this guy's coming into town. I think he could help. You have no idea. Maybe I didn't help,
Yeah.
whatever. But you were like, we're getting in the car, we're going. And you drove 6 hours, which I'll tell you right now, I don't even like driving 45 minutes. Like, I don't like driving.
Right.
So 6 hours, like you really want to learn, right? And you came down there, you figured out, and then on the way home, 6 hours, you guys talked and built a plan and took action. And next thing you know, you're in the top 10% in your tier. And I think that says a lot about you and who you are. And for those watching and listening, if there's anything you can learn from Lanie, it's her resilience and her ability to take action and get shit done. So I applaud you for that. Um, so what are some of the things, like, obviously there's things that you might have learned from Loudroom, or you might have learned just kind of like figuring things out on your own. I know off camera we talked a little bit about your sales process and really how that's evolved over the last few years, your scripts, how that's evolved. Let's start with that. Like, how has that sales process really evolved?
So, we started out with like just in a like three pieces like stapled together of paper, and it was still blocked off in like graph or blocks of day one, day two, day three. Here's your text. Here's your call. Here's your voicemail. And I have color coding as far as green are my like let's go. They're ready to book. Yellow are our rebook, and red is our missed sale. So we use kind of like the red light, green light system. So we know how we're working, and we were working those tasks in most importance of order. But now we have a binder that's about that big, and it has everything that a sales rep would need to know. It has a whole section on like Pilates benefits. So if somebody has a back injury, if somebody has shoulder, like what are the benefits that you can immediately tell them on the phone? It has a cheat sheet that lists here are the 10 questions. So they know the script, they memorize the script, and we have that in our book too. But I want them to have a cheat sheet with these are the questions. If you're stuck on the call, so we're always leading that call, right? Like we don't want the prospect to be leading the call. We want to be in charge of where that conversation is going and gathering that information. I mean, down to like somebody comes in to buy a gift card, what do you do?
Yeah,
So
right.
it's all there.
I love it. And once you have the playbook, which I got a chance to interview this guy named Dan Martell on the podcast, and he was all about playbooks. And
Yes.
once you really get a chance to interview, or once you really get a chance to build out playbooks for virtually everything in your business, you really understand like the impact it can make, and the
Yeah.
scalability that your business now has, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Last thing I want to dive into is training your staff. And then there's something fun right after that, by the way. So training your staff. What is some of the, like, I know you said you spend 30 days with them, you really go through it. What about on an ongoing? One of the things I talk about is training isn't something you did, it's something you do. A lot of people think like,
Right.
okay, we trained them when they first started, now they should just know. What does training look like on an ongoing basis for you?
So, um, one, which is kind of like no brainer, we have a monthly sales rep like meeting. Um, and sometimes that may be more often, but usually typically a once a month. And we have a whole whiteboard in our office that we write down as we're going, like questions that we have or things that have come up that we need a little more in-depth training on. Two, we have a group me account that's just for our sales team. So that's where I'm updating on quotas, updating on where we are studio wide goal, what do we need. And during the month, like, okay, we have 10 shifts left. I need 8 more memberships. So that's roughly, I need you to be focused on 1 membership per shift, right? So I'm communicating constantly and cheering them on. So we're all loving every time somebody sells a membership. We're putting in there when they book somebody. So that accountability is there. And then because there's just one studio, this is the beauty of one studio for us. And this is probably one of the things that helps make it more profitable too, is that I'm there with them and not all the time, but I'm I'm there and I'm in the moment, watching them sell, or I'm helping them sell, or we're both tag teaming, but because they finished up with their person and I'm talking to somebody else, they're able to observe what I'm doing. So again, that leading by example, and sometimes our training is more just a leading by example. And then I want my staff to feel a part of decisions and how we run things and what we do. And it may just be as simple as today I sent over to one of my sales reps to help me with an Instagram reel, and I sent her the caption and I sent her a video of one that I'd copied that I was like, okay, we want to kind of do something like this, but we want to make it our own. And I was like, well, what do you think about the taglines? Because I'm not really feeling real great about them. So I want that feedback, and I want, we're all better together than just one person making all the decisions.
Absolutely love it. Okay, so now I got some quick fire questions that should take about a minute. But before we do that, for anybody that's been listening in and you like what Lanie had to say and you want to ask her any questions, you want to learn from her, Lanie, you shared that your Instagram handle is Lanie Brazell, or at Lanie Brazell. If you guys go to Instagram, you can message her there. And, if there's any like little takeaway, she's super smart. I love learning from Lanie as well. So for those driving and you're listening in, it's LanieBrazell, and you can find it in the description of the episode show notes as well. Okay, so Lanie, you ready for some quick fire questions here?
Sure.
This is Lanie now, Lanie, like in here, right? Okay, Lanie, if you weren't a human, if you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Oh, a puppy.
A puppy. Oh my God. Okay. You're on your deathbed. You got one meal left. What are you eating?
Noodles.
Noodles. Okay. I love it. Apple or PC?
Apple.
There you go. I knew I liked you. Chess or checkers?
Oh, neither.
Neither.
Tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe. And then last one. You can have dinner with any three people, dead or alive. Who's at the dinner?
Oh, that's tough. Oh, wow. Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Okay.
I mean, why not, right? It's 2024. And, oh, I don't know. That's so tough. There's so many.
It could be dead or alive.
Dead or alive. Queen Elizabeth, maybe.
Queen Elizabeth.
I mean, talk about a leader for a long time, right?
That table is going to be extremely interesting. I have a feeling Buffett's going to sit and listen until somebody asks him a question, and everyone wishes they did earlier. That's
I know,
great.
right?
I love it. All right. Well, hey, Lanie, thank you so much. I learned from you over these last few years, and I wanted to share and make sure other people got a chance to learn from you as well. For everybody tuning in and listening, Lanie's fantastic. Give her a follow and really check out what she's been doing. She probably doesn't post much. I know that's not really your thing, but Club Pilates out in Auburn. You can follow Club Pilates Auburn to check out what their studio's doing. Lanie, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing as much as you did.
It's always fun.
All right, take care.